Please don't forget to subscribe, because a lot of people that watch my videos don't subscribe apparently, and hit that bell so you stay informed with the latest and greatest videos from this channel. I'm also live every day on twitch.tv/HasanAbi after 11 a.m. Pacific.
This episode and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help support this channel and get early access to every video, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought.
I gotta pee, I'll be back.
These days, it's hard to imagine ourselves as living through good times, where once the future was brimming with hope and we were free to imagine a utopian society for ourselves and our children. Pessimism has steadily crept over our imagination, taking hold of our future and shackling us with a vision of dystopia. We've become accustomed to the idea that things won't actually get better, and it's not all that surprising. Every day we're confronted with these narratives, not just in movies or TV shows, but in our day-to-day life too. We watch from the sidelines as proto-fascist regimes grow in power and popularity. Right in front of us, the institutions of our governments are taken over by those who repress our civil liberties, while the state's forces descend into our streets and punish our resistance with violence. We see white nationalism, the very kind we had been told would fade away in our ever-progressing society, swell and become more indiscriminate in its cruelty. Year after year, report after report confirms the enormous toll that our reliance on fossil fuels has on our environment and our health, promising escalation as long as we keep going with business as usual. And all the while, in the background, the machine keeps turning and pushing more and more people into poverty, into sickness, and into endless menial work. These past couple of years, and really the past couple decades, have not been easy. And although this introduction has painted a grim picture of our society, in this episode we'll be focusing on its antidote, revolutionary optimism. Both holding on to optimism as a revolutionary act in itself, and the necessity of optimism in working towards positive change. Let's jump in. Revolutionary optimism is several things. For one, it's the rejection of a defeatist or doomer outlook on life. Revolutionary optimism means remaining hopeful that the goals of the revolution will one day be achieved, and that these causes are worth fighting for, day in and day out. What revolutionary optimism is not, is a blind faith.
Thanks for dono-walling my donation about the Czech Republic earlier. I had to work for 15 hours and not drink the mandatory 100 liters of beer for the next 2 weeks just to afford in this economy. I guess when you sit in a $3 million mansion, you really don't care about the not-so-fortunate people in the world, you disgusting hog. I mean, dude, you can be a fucking worker in the Czech Republic and still be an entitled little fucking dumbass brat that thinks that, like, their fucking little weenie donation is more important than the conversation that I'm having with a great labor reporter in front of 30,000 people that have finally access to learning more about fucking all the labor momentum that's going around. If you fucking donated, you're an idiot regardless. The TTS is not fucking on. You know the TTS is not on currently. It was before then. Well, the TTS is not on. I'm very fucking... Do you not know how this works? You get my attention by being a fucking dumb fuck in the chat, okay? You don't get my attention by donating money to me, you dumb fuck. Use your hard-earned dollars better, okay? Dumb bitch. Exactly. So will you react now? What's your donation about the Czech Republic? I don't care about it. Okay. Actually, trick question. I don't care. We're doing something else now. Okay. Motherfuckers will literally be like, haha, actually, I'm working class. So you have to fucking literally pay attention to me. It's no different than that fucking person who's like, why isn't the Kellogg's labor strike centered around my personal experiences? TTS is now on. Okay, I don't know if this person was just simply baiting, by the way, and I'm sorry if you were. I got mad. But don't be a fucking idiot. You're on the front page of Reddit? Really? Subreddit drama doesn't often give me like a fair shake, if we're being real. Okay, we're gonna get back to the second thought video. We'll look at this subreddit drama in a second.
Faith in the success of this struggle. It is not falling into dogma and blindly assuming that the end of an unjust and capitalist system is inevitable, and by that assumption, standing back as it continues to reproduce both injustice and capitalism itself. Revolutionary optimism is active. But we should start with the flip side of the coin: despair. Despair, pessimism, or more recently, doomerism, is one of our greatest modern challenges. Whatever you want to call it, it seems that more and more people are feeling it and have given up, either on their own personal success or that of the climate movement, the most existential struggle in the history of our species. Other times, doomerism comes from the ranks of the left, where doomers are convinced in the failure of a socialist future or the
I turn back to donos, by the way. If you want to fucking write dumb shit that I will not listen to, you can now.
Possibility of wishing for a time where large-scale issues like racial inequality will be resolved. There is something understandable about this point of view given the magnitude of these issues. That being said, there is also something deeply wrong with doomerism. This mindset stops progress dead in its tracks. We can see this in every progressive movement. After all, doomerism justifies disengaging politically, in protest or elections, allowing more committed political opponents to define the political sphere to their benefit, willfully ignoring or amplifying the very issues that plunge people into doomerism in the first place. We see this in government explicitly, where politicians take advantage of defeatist narratives in an even more detrimental way as they completely resign on tackling big issues. Before a piece of progressive legislation is even considered by Congress, we have seen time and time again our elected officials giving up on it as if it were dead on arrival instead of treating it properly, like the product of a political will they have the power to influence and the responsibility as representatives to see it through. We've seen this with the $15 minimum wage. We've seen it with the Green New Deal, and we'll continue to see it so long as there is a resignation to fatalism on the left. Before these bills ever made it to the Capitol, Democratic leadership admitted defeat, not seeking.
Wow. Well, second thought doesn't understand the intricacies and the complexities that revolve around the Senate parliamentarians' absolutely important decision to maintain the Senate parliamentarians' roles. I am a jurisprudence fetishist. I care about civility more than anything else. And that's precisely why this was a hurdle that was too far to overcome. We can never do that. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. I know that that's like often that's like the fucking annoying Democratic Party defenders that say idiotic things like that. If you say idiotic things like that in this chat and you are not being directly funded by the DNC, you are the biggest cuck on the planet. If you care about bipartisanship, you are the biggest cuck on the planet. So yeah, H-Bizzle at the very least, one, works for the union side, and two, literally does get paid by the Democratic Party. He is the only one who is allowed to be a fucking Democratic Party cuck and a propagandist because at least he gets fucking paid by them, okay? You don't. You're just an idiot.
Seeking to counter conservative narratives and bureaucratic obstacles with the same vigor their opponents do. This should be obvious, but the more we prematurely give up and tell ourselves it'll never happen, the more likely failure becomes. And this turns out great for those who want to see progress stunted. For a fossil fuel executive, there is no difference between a denialist and a doomer. Whether you don't support measures to reduce the effects of climate change because you've given up, or because you don't believe in the problem at all, it's all the same for those who profit off the continued emissions of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and the pollution of our local environments. But of course, doomerism doesn't come out of nowhere. There is an explanation. Behind this fashionable internet term is often simply another form of depression. This deep-seated feeling of despair brought about by converging social and societal factors can be less a political philosophy and more of an illness that affects many of us. We know from 2020 and 2021, during which we saw a 30% increase in feelings of depression and anxiety and a 45% increase in deaths of despair, that this is affecting more and more people and that it is largely a product of our collective environment. It would hardly be productive for us to single out those for whom this is a well-known issue and pretend like it is them who are somehow to blame for the stagnation of American politics or the difficult journey towards a more sustainable future. Instead, it is imperative to counter the narratives that emerge out of doomerism with what is lacking: a sense of agency and optimism. And there are reasons to be optimistic. For starters, more and more people today are mobilizing for a better future. People are taking up protest signs, spots in elected office, and roles in society to both promote and actively bring about positive change on a scale that hasn't been seen for several decades. Last year, city streets swelled with massive crowds the world over, with people advocating for a more equal society and the end to our dependency on fossil fuels. On the left specifically, we've seen a massive surge in political awareness and support for the socialist cause. But if you find yourself falling into the doom and gloom mindset, you likely already know this and think it's not enough. But don't worry, there's more, and there are things that you can do. For one thing, acknowledge that this isn't your fault. Plenty of people are falling into this sense of general malaise, and there is objective proof that this is a product of our circumstances and the specific conditions most of us live in today. Second, while this all seems so permanent, the odds are on our side. They're on the side of progress. For climate change specifically, we're kicking fossil fuels out of energy production at rates we never expected 20 to 30 years ago. In some countries, like Scotland, renewables make up almost the entirety of energy production at 97%, a recent development that would have seemed unimaginable a generation ago. In Global South countries like China, where renewables are still a comparatively costly option, an ever greater portion of electricity is coming from less polluting sources. Just recently, China declared that it would cease all funding for new coal plants, doing more for the climate movement with the stroke of a pen than decades of unproductive Western summits.
But they're communists, so. We should be producing more coal now. We got to do everything the opposite of China.
It may often seem like our current moment in history.
Global South, like China, aren't they one of the world's biggest economies? I mean, it was, I don't know why he said Global South when mentioning China, but it is a developing economy. It's a developing nation. The Alex Press pizza, I know, she just sent it to me. The film industry wants to keep the status quo, then shut it down. By Alex Press. Miss Press is a staff writer of the Jacobin magazine and the host of Primer, a podcast about Amazon. She wrote this from my house. I'm so happy. Anyway, let's keep going.
History is part of this long lineage, an unbreakable string of events. We exist in a very new time that can just as easily transform into something different. Like Earth.
It's tight. It's the dopest thing ever, dude. Being able to like house people, being able to like host friends and shit. It's the sickest. Family, friends. It's awesome.
Ursula K. Le Guin said, "Though we live in capitalism and its power seems inescapable, so did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings. We have far more agency than we often feel like we do. In a human history of 200,000 years, our current economic model has only prevailed for the past 500.
Someone donated $100. D-Machine says, how the fuck did you get enough money for a $3 million house? Isn't that against your friend Mark's 10 Commandments? Now, first of all, I'm going to make fun of you for doing that. What a silly thing to do. Why would you ever do that? Don't ever do that. 2, now that I've actually read your donation, I just want to urge you to understand that if you try to charge it back, I will fight you. I will take time out of my day, and I will fight that tooth and nail, because I just did read your fucking donation. Thank God Streamlabs actually automatically calculates every single time on a VOD when someone actually ends up donating in an effort to fight back against donations. So try to charge that back. I will fight you tooth and fucking nail. I just took $100 out of your mommy's purse, baby. Let's go. Unless you were just like memeing and you wanted to give me $100, in which case you probably still shouldn't do that. That's silly.
current conditions for less than a century, and our ability to change them has never been so great. As a final consideration, think about the ways that you can get involved to make this change happen. The best antidote to feeling that nothing is changing isn't listening to a couple statistics, it's actually working to make things change yourself. It's hardly a new idea that action is a remedy to despair, but we don't need particularly novel ideas for things to improve. If you're looking for an easy way to get started, there is always going to be an organization or group nearby making meaningful change in your community. In just about every major city, and most other places around the country, you'll find a local branch of the DSA, a socialist or communist political party, or your local community's.
What the fuck? D-Machine, fuck you, Hassan. I do what I want with another $100 donation. Please stop donating. Like, literally, stop donating. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Mutual aid collective. And yes, for those of you who like to complain about the DSA and claim it's a sham, I'm going to continue including it because it's always better to get involved and learn the ropes of organizing than it is to call everything an op. No, it's obviously not perfect. Yes, some branches are way too liberal, but it's a democratic organization. If you want it to become more radical, get involved and work to make it happen. Or at the very least, attend a meeting, confirm it's not for you, and then you'll know you're not missing out on anything. If none of these groups are options in your area, there will still always be some place looking for help or be some way that you can leverage your skills to make a positive difference. If you can cook, you can participate in efforts to feed the homeless, or those demonstrating at sit-ins, protests, and strikes. If you're an artist, you can create posters and flyers for a local group, or just to promote socialist ideas. If you're a writer, write for whatever audience you can get. It's never been easier to host your work online. Same thing if you're a speaker. If you have medical or first aid skills, help out when protesters are injured. If you can edit videos, make your own channel. I started with 0 subscribers.
You do all this stuff? No, I kick when I see someone that's been fucked over by society. I spit on them when I'm walking down the street. That's how I do it. That's my fucking you know, part of it. I mean, he's talking about literally doing propaganda.
A computer, and some opinions. Anything is possible. If you feel lost, start reading and learn about what other people have done, either on your own or in book clubs or online communities. Participate in the movements you see spring up around you. Speak at local government meetings. Elect local leaders that better represent you, or run yourself. If you can find even one thing that makes sense for you to do, do it. At the end of the day, the message behind maintaining a revolutionary optimism isn't committing to taking up arms or immediately overthrowing a government you disagree with. It's about maintaining a consistent and continuous vision of resistance against capitalist decline within a framework of solidarity and community. A revolution is not measured by the moment a government or economic system falls, but rather by the efforts of a united community, and that takes time, people, and hope to build. If this feels oversimplified, that's because it is. Of course, telling you to make posters isn't going to suddenly end climate change or resolve any of the awful situations we've found ourselves in. In the same way that no video will ever perfectly speak to your circumstances or what you can do, or even completely capture something as vague as revolutionary optimism, this is only a first and deeply personal step. The goal in these suggestions and the critique of doomer narratives isn't to give you all the keys.
What the fuck? They're putting rice in a sandwich, a ham and cheese sandwich? What's going on here, dude? What is that? I mean, that's it looks delicious. Oh, that's eggs? Oh, pimento cheese. Oh, I just came a little bit. Fuck, dude. Oh my God. I know we're talking about doomerism, but what about my fucking coomerism, dude?
Critique of doomer narratives isn't to give you all the keys, but to participate in the cultivation of a culture of positive action. This is the only way forward. If we look to the past, positive determination and commitment to change has always been the only way to achieve progress. Every social movement has relied on positivity, Not naive idealism or the misplaced belief that society is further along than it really is, but a genuine desire to push forward and—
Yucca-san, please tell me you don't like pimento cheese. I love spice and I love cheese. Are you insane? The caviar of the South, dude? Yeah, I fucking love pimento cheese. What do you mean yuck, dude? What an insane fucking take.
and strive for positive change. Baked into the very idea of a movement for change is the feeling that there is hope. For a movement to exist, it must both realize the inadequacy and injustice of the present, but also believe in the ability for this to change into a better future. That is inherently optimistic. Otherwise, why create a movement at all? On the pragmatic level, social organizers have known the importance of optimism for a long time. If their project doesn't seem exciting, driven by enthusiastic people, or reasonably likely to succeed, people won't join, and why would they? Part of the reason one of the suggestions in this video is to join a local organization is because collectives create self-reinforcing visions of hope and optimism. When a collective properly uses hope to set itself goals, both you as the member and the organization as a whole are pushed forward towards social change. Hope becomes much more tangible, and therefore so does the chance of a difference actually being made. If you're still unconvinced, start reading about past revolutions, present social movements, and the central role played by revolutionary optimism and hope. As always, the sources for this video, including an academic paper that details the importance of group-based hope for environmental action, are in the description. This is not an optimism meant to distract—
Cringe is not illegal. Stop. Stop. Yes, DSAs can be cringe sometimes. Shut
you
up.
from everything that has gone wrong, and the legitimate fears you may have about the future. This is not a justification for complacency. This is active change. It is solidarity in response to toxic hyper-individualism. The future is ours to determine. We have a world to win, but it will take dedication, hard work, and revolutionary optimism. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this kind of content is made possible by my patrons on Patreon. When I
Okay.